The Mystery of the Cupboard, Chapter 16, The Jewel Case. Omri gasped. There was a long silence. The little people became restive. "Well, come on then, dear," said Elsie coaxingly. "Shut the door on us. Send us back. Why, look at you. You look as if you've seen a ghost. Whatever is the matter?" Omri was staring at Bert. Where did you say you got these?" he croaked at last. "Nicked them from a house in Clapham," muttered Bert. "Why did you pick that particular house?" The little thief jerked his shoulders once in a shrug, but he didn't look Omri in the face. The other two were looking at him now, and he suddenly seemed to have lost all his cockiness. "Did you know it was Miss Jessie's sister's place?" Omri asked. "If you didn't, it's the strangest coincidence I've ever heard of." "Oh, Bert, you never did!" screamed out Elsie. "Why, you little sneak thief! You knew she was well off. Miss Jessie told you about her. You knew! You took advantage of Miss Jessie's confidence!" Ted broke in thunderously. "I knew you was a wrongin', but I never believed you could stoop so low." "They treated her disgusting, made her miserable," said Bert sulkingly. "She never said that. She did. Well, she hinted. Why else wasn't her bloomin' sister around to take care of her when she was pegging out?" "But all that was 30 years ago," said Omri. "What made you rob her now? I mean then. In what year did you say it was for you? 1919? Because I worked it out. 30 years ago, when we used to come here before, it was 1898 for Else and me. Miss Jessie was only a little tiddler, 10 years old, and a sister. Like she was only a couple of years older, so I had to wait till the sister grew up and got married." "And got rich, you mean, you tricky little devil," said Elsie. "Biding your time, counting the years. You had plenty of time to find out where she lived. You must have been planning this one ever since." "But how could you rob a poor grieving widow?" asked Ted in a shocked voice. "You know Miss Jessie told us her sister's husband was killed." "Ah," said Bert slyly, some of his former confidence coming back. "I knew he was going to be killed. Yeah, I knew that. Me rob a widow? What do you take me for? I got me standards. I chose me moment before it happened." "But it wasn't!" exclaimed Omri accusingly. "Her husband died in 1918, just a few days after the war ended." Bert turned to look up at him. "You don't know that," he said. He sounded suddenly uneasy. "Yes, I do. I know exactly when it happened. If it's only 1919 for you now, you must remember. November last year it was in the papers. I haven't time to waste reading newspapers." "Hasn't brains, he means." "It's not that he don't read," said Elsie cuttingly. "He can't." "I could have sworn she said," Bert began. She never said exactly when he died," said Ted slowly. "She just said after the war. Perhaps Bert really didn't know." "I never!" Bert said, his voice rising shrilly. "I swear on a stack of Bibles I thought he was still alive, to make more money for her. Anyway, they're always well insured. That sort, she won't have to stand the loss." Omri swallowed. All this was more than he could cope with. But one thing he realized. This was the burglary. And this, in front of him, 3 inches high, was the very burglar he had shaken hands with him, that had robbed his great-grandmother of her valuables and forced her to sell her home, and later, when she was already old, to go out cleaning to keep his mother. There, in that tiny sack, no bigger than a marble, were all the beautiful things, the silver tea service and the rest. The sword stick had probably been Matthew's. That might have changed Maria's life, and his mother's too. Perhaps Maria would have to sell them to live. But if she hadn't, the things in the jewel case would have been Omri's mother's inheritance. Was it too late? Could he change history now, the history of his own family? He crouched down until his eyes were level with Bert's, standing on the shelf in the cupboard. "Listen to me," he said fiercely. "You've done a terrible thing. You've changed a person's whole life for the worse. Not just one person. Maybe you didn't mean to. Maybe you didn't think. But that's what thieves do. They cause things. They change things. She wasn't insured. You helped make her very poor. The robber shrugged his thin shoulders again. I can't help it, he muttered. I got to live, same as the next man. Omri clenched his hands. Listen, he said again. I'm going to send you back now. You must go back to that house. You must give the stuff back, now, today, tonight. Bert, who'd been standing at his feet, now looked up sharply. I can't do that, he snarled. What, give myself away? She'd have the law on me in 2 shakes of a Balaam's waggler. You don't have to see her. Just go to the house and dump the sack in the garden, or outside the door, or anything. Give it back. Give the stuff back, especially the case. You must give back the jewel case. Please, Bert, you've got to. If you've even a shred of decency in you, you'll never know another moment's happiness if you don't, said Ted. I'll see to that, you little tyke, echoed Elsie. I'm contemporaneous with you, and don't you forget it. The robbery will be in the papers tomorrow. I can read if you can't, and if I don't see that stuff get back all right, I won't rest till you're caught. So help me God, I won't. Else you wouldn't turn me in, not you. You're no angel yourself. Maybe I've done a few things, but nothing like this. Miss Jessie's own sister, fresh in her widow's black, her poor man hardly covered in his grave. She never come to see her. She was no good. She deserved it. Oh, so you're the shut-in instrument of justice, are you? Don't make me laugh. Elsie turned away in disgust. Bert shuffled his feet. A professional, handing back his loot. If any of me colleagues found out, I'd never hear the end of it. Omri suddenly realized he had the ultimate weapon. Without hesitation, he used it. Maybe you'd rather not go back at all, he said grimly. The look Bert threw him was one of horror. If I gave back the jewel case, he whined at last, can I keep the rest? I got a family of my own, 8 nippers. A likely story, snorted Ted. I bet you double the number every time you tell it. I'm not talking to you, Bert appealed to Omri. What do you say, Governor? It was all beyond Omri's control. His head was spinning. He could hear the voices of Gian and Tony coming across the paddock. All right, he said, but do it. Swear you will. Bert raised his right hand solemnly and rolled his eyes heavenward. I swear on my dear old mother's grave I will return the jewel case to its rightful owner, Miss Jessie's sister, at her house on Clapham Common this very night, he said in pious tones. Now send us back, dear, said Elsie nervously. My poor little pussy-cat will be wanting his tea. And my old troubles and strife will think I've conked out for good, said Ted. Omri held Bert's eyes a few moments longer. The voices were close now, almost under the window. Omri, where are you? Then Gion's footsteps on the stairs. Do it, said Omri. Goodbye. He slammed the door of the cupboard and locked it. He just had time to put it out of sight under his bed and throw a magazine over the open cash box when Gian and Tony burst in. And we will pause there.